Jenna was a college student who loved to explore abandoned places. She had heard about an old factory on the outskirts of town that had been closed for years, and she decided to check it out. She packed her backpack with a flashlight, a camera, and some snacks, and she set out on her adventure. As she approached the factory, she noticed that there was a strange smell in the air, a mix of chemicals and something else, something rotten. Jenna didn't let the smell deter her, and she made her way inside the factory. She explored the dark and dusty corridors, taking pictures and making notes of what she saw. But then something even more terrifying happened. She heard footsteps coming from the other end of the hallway. She turned off her flashlight and hid, but the footsteps grew louder and closer. Jenna was frozen with fear, but then something even more shocking happened. The person who emerged from the darkness was not a monster or a killer, but a man in a hazmat suit. The man explained that the factory had been a chemical plant, and that it had been closed down because of a toxic spill that had contaminated the entire area. He warned Jenna that she was in danger, that the air she was breathing was poisonous and that she needed to leave immediately. Jenna was shocked and scared, but then something even more shocking happened. The man in the hazmat suit revealed that he was not a worker or a scientist, but a ghost, a victim of the toxic spill who had never been able to leave the factory. He explained that he had been trapped there for years, watching as the factory fell into ruin and as people like Jenna came to explore it. He begged Jenna to help him find a way out, to break the curse that kept him and the other ghosts bound to that place. Jenna was moved by the ghost's plea, and she vowed to do everything she could to help him. She realized that the factory was not just an abandoned building, but a place full of tragic history and unresolved spirits. She left the factory with a newfound appreciation for the power of the supernatural and a determination to help those who are trapped in between worlds. Maggie had always been a fan of true crime stories. She loved reading about serial killers and psychopaths, and she often wondered what it would be like to meet one in person. One day, while on vacation in a small town, Maggie met a man named Richard. He was charming and friendly, and they struck up a conversation in a local coffee shop. As they talked, Maggie couldn't help but notice that Richard seemed to know a lot about serial killers. He could name all the famous ones, and he seemed to have a deep understanding of their motivations and methods. Maggie was intrigued, and she asked Richard if he had ever met a serial killer in person. He hesitated for a moment, then he said that he had. Richard told Maggie that he had once been a prison guard at a high-security prison. He had met many notorious killers and had even formed a bond with some of them. Maggie was fascinated, and she asked Richard to tell her more. But then something even more terrifying happened. Richard's demeanor changed, and his eyes became cold and calculating. He told Maggie that he had not just met serial killers, but that he had become one. He explained that he had always been fascinated by their minds, and that he had studied them for years. And then he had started to emulate them, to kill in their style and leave clues for the police to find. Maggie was frozen with fear, but then something even more shocking happened. Richard revealed that he had brought her to the town for a reason. He had chosen her to be his next victim, to be the subject of his ultimate crime. Maggie was trapped, with no way out. But then she realized that she had a chance to fight back. She used her knowledge of true crime stories to outsmart Richard, to play on his obsession with serial killers and to turn his own methods against him. In the end, Maggie was able to escape and to bring Richard to justice. She realized that the fascination with true crime was not just a morbid curiosity, but a tool for survival and empowerment. Sarah and her friends had always been fascinated by the abandoned asylum on the outskirts of town. They had heard stories of the horrible things that had happened there, and they had always wanted to explore it. One night, they decided to sneak into the asylum and see what they could find. They brought flashlights and cameras, and they were determined to document their adventure. As they entered the asylum, they heard strange noises and whispers in the darkness. They were scared, but they kept going, exploring the creepy hallways and rooms. But then something even more terrifying happened. They heard footsteps coming from the other end of the hallway. They turned off their flashlights and hid, but the footsteps grew louder and closer. Sarah and her friends were frozen with fear, but then something even more shocking happened. The person who emerged from the darkness was not a monster or a ghost, but a man in a security guard uniform. The security guard explained that he had been assigned to watch over the asylum, to prevent people from sneaking in and getting hurt. He warned Sarah and her friends that the asylum was not safe, and that they should leave immediately. Sarah and her friends were ashamed and embarrassed, but then something even more shocking happened. The security guard revealed that he had been a patient at the asylum many years ago. He had been wrongly accused of a crime and locked up, and he had suffered in that place for years. He explained that the asylum had been a terrible place, full of abuse and neglect. But he had found a way to survive, to hold on to his sanity and his humanity. He had learned to find joy in small things, to appreciate the beauty in the world around him, and to never lose hope. Sarah and her friends were shocked and moved by the security guard's story. They realized that the asylum was not just a creepy place full of ghosts and monsters, but a place full of human suffering and resilience. They left the asylum with a newfound respect for the power of the human spirit, and a determination to fight against injustice and cruelty in the world. Anna was a college student who had just moved into a new dorm room. She was excited to start her new life, but there was something strange about her room. Whenever she tried to sleep, she would hear strange whispers in the darkness. One night, as she was lying in bed, the whispers grew louder and more distinct. She could make out words and phrases, but they didn't make any sense. They seemed to be coming from the walls themselves. Anna was scared, but she tried to ignore the whispers and go to sleep. But then something even more terrifying happened. The walls started to move, as if they were alive. They twisted and turned, and strange patterns appeared on their surface. Anna was frozen with fear, but then the patterns started to form a shape. It was the shape of a woman, with long black hair and an eerie smile. The woman started to move, and Anna realized that she was a ghost. The ghost spoke to Anna, telling her that she had been murdered in that very room many years ago. She had been a college student just like Anna, but she had fallen in love with the wrong man, a dangerous man who had killed her in a fit of rage. Anna was shocked and scared, but then something even more shocking happened. The ghost asked Anna to help her find her killer. She explained that she had been stuck in that room for years, unable to move on until her killer was brought to justice. Anna was hesitant at first, but she knew that she had to help the ghost. Together, they worked to uncover the identity of the killer and bring him to justice. In the end, the killer was caught, and the ghost was able to move on. Anna realized that sometimes the things we fear the most are actually there to help us, and that there is always a way to find justice, even in the afterlife. Emily was a young woman who had just moved into a new apartment. She loved the place, but there was something strange about it. She would hear strange noises in the middle of the night, and sometimes she felt like she was being watched. One night, as she was getting ready for bed, she heard a loud banging on the front door. She was scared, but she went to check who it was. As she opened the door, a man entered her apartment, holding a knife. The man was tall and muscular, and he looked like he was on drugs. He demanded that Emily give him all her money, but she didn't have any. She begged him to leave, but he refused and started to approach her with a knife. As he was about to attack her, Emily noticed something strange. The man's face started to twist and contort, and his body transformed into that of a monster. His eyes turned red, and he grew sharp teeth and claws. Emily was frozen with fear, but then something even more shocking happened. The monster started to talk to her, revealing that he wasn't there to hurt her. He was actually a protector, sent to watch over her and keep her safe. Emily didn't believe him at first, but then she realized that the strange noises and feelings of being watched were actually the monster watching over her. He had been hiding in plain sight, protecting her from harm. The monster explained that he had been watching over her for years, waiting for the right time to reveal himself. He had been sent by a secret organization to protect her from a dangerous criminal who was after her. Emily was shocked and scared, but she knew that she had to trust the monster. Together, they worked to uncover the identity of the criminal and bring him to justice. In the end, the criminal was caught, and Emily was safe. She realized that sometimes the things we fear the most are actually there to protect us, and that the world is full of mysteries that we can't explain. In a small town, there was an old house that had been abandoned for years. The locals believed that it was haunted, and many had claimed to see strange things happening inside. One day, a group of teenagers decided to explore the house and see if the rumors were true. As they entered the house, they felt a chill run down their spines. The air was thick with dust, and the floorboards creaked under their feet. As they explored the rooms, they found nothing out of the ordinary. But as they were about to leave, they noticed a locked door in the back of the house. They decided to investigate and broke the lock, revealing a hidden staircase leading to a basement. As they descended the stairs, they heard strange noises and saw shadows moving in the darkness. They were scared, but their curiosity got the best of them, and they continued down the stairs. When they reached the bottom, they saw a figure standing in the shadows. It was a woman, dressed in a white gown, with long black hair covering her face. She was standing in front of an old mirror, staring at her reflection. The teenagers were terrified and tried to leave, but the door was locked from the outside. The woman turned to face them, and they saw that her eyes were pitch black. Suddenly, she started to scream, and the room shook with an intense force. The teenagers thought they were going to die, but then something strange happened. The woman's body began to twist and contort, and her face transformed into that of an old man. The old man introduced himself as the owner of the house, who had been disguising himself as the woman to scare away any potential intruders. He explained that he had been living in the basement, hidden from the outside world, for years. The teenagers were shocked and scared, but they knew that they had to leave the house and call the police. As they fled, they heard the old man laughing maniacally, promising that they would never be able to leave the house alive. When the police arrived, they discovered that the old man had been a serial killer, responsible for the disappearances of dozens of people over the years. He had been using the abandoned house as his lair, hiding in plain sight and scaring away anyone who came close. The teenagers had narrowly escaped becoming his next victims, and they realized that the old house wasn't haunted, but rather, it was a trap. In a small, isolated village, there was a legend of a creature that lived in the nearby forest. The villagers warned their children never to venture into the woods alone, or they risked being taken by the creature. One day, a young girl named Anna decided to explore the forest on her own. She was convinced that the creature was just a myth, and she wanted to prove to the villagers that they were wrong. As she wandered deeper into the forest, she heard a rustling in the bushes. Suddenly, a hand reached out and grabbed her. She screamed and struggled, but the creature was too strong. It dragged her deeper into the woods, and Anna knew that she was going to die. But then, something strange happened. The creature stopped and released her. It revealed itself to be a young boy, not much older than Anna herself. He explained that he had been cursed by a witch and turned into a monster. He had been living in the forest, alone and afraid, until he met Anna. The two of them quickly became friends and spent the day playing in the woods. Anna promised to help the boy find a way to break the curse and return him to his human form. As they returned to the village, the boy revealed another shocking secret. He wasn't the only one who had been cursed. There were others, living in the forest, afraid to come out and reveal themselves to the villagers. Anna knew that she had to help them, and with the boy's guidance, she worked tirelessly to find a way to break the curse. Eventually, they discovered a potion that could break the curse, and they set out to free the cursed children. When they returned to the villagers were shocked to see the once monstrous children return to their human forms. They were grateful to Anna and the boy for their bravery and kindness. Anna realized that the real monsters weren't the cursed children living in the forest, but the villagers who had spread fear and mistrust for generations. She and the boy became heroes, bringing the village together and ending the cycle of fear and hatred. In a quiet neighborhood, there was a house that everyone avoided. The house had been abandoned for years, and strange things had been reported happening inside. One day, a group of friends decided to investigate the house and see if the rumors were true. As they entered the house, they felt an eerie sense of foreboding. The air was thick with dust and cobwebs, and the floorboards creaked under their feet. They explored the rooms cautiously, but found nothing out of the ordinary. Just as they were about to leave, they heard a noise coming from the basement. Curiosity got the best of them, and they decided to investigate. As they descended the stairs, they saw a figure in the shadows. It was a man, dressed in a tattered suit and holding a suitcase. The man stared at them with dark, hollow eyes, and then vanished into thin air. The friends were shocked and terrified, convinced that they had seen a ghost. As they fled the house, one of them noticed something strange. The suitcase that the man had been carrying was left behind on the stairs. They opened it, and to their horror, they found it filled with stacks of cash and jewelry. Suddenly, everything made sense. The man wasn't a ghost, but a living person who had been using the abandoned house as a hiding place for his illegal activities. He had been scared off by the unexpected visitors, leaving behind his valuable loot. The friends were faced with a dilemma. Should they turn in the suitcase to the police and risk getting caught up in the criminal underworld, or keep the loot for themselves and risk the wrath of the man who owned it? They knew that either way, their lives would never be the same again. In a small town surrounded by dense forests, there was a legend of a creature that lived in the woods. The creature was said to be a shapeshifter, taking on the form of whatever its prey feared the most. It preyed on those who dared to venture into the forest alone. One day, a group of teenagers decided to go camping in the forest, disregarding the warnings of the townspeople. They set out their tents near a creek and settled in for the night. As they sat around a campfire, telling ghost stories and roasting marshmallows, they heard a rustling in the bushes. Suddenly, one of them disappeared, and the others panicked. They searched frantically for their friend, but he was nowhere to be found. The group huddled together, too scared to sleep, and waited for morning. When the sun rose, they discovered their missing friend's torn and mangled body. The creature had struck again. As they mourned their loss and planned their escape from the forest, one of the teenagers noticed something strange. The creature's footprints were different than they had been the night before. Upon closer inspection, they realized that the creature wasn't a shapeshifter at all. It was one of their own. The creature was a member of their group who had been secretly plotting to kill the others for the past few weeks. He had disguised himself as the creature to cover up his crimes and to instill fear in the others, making them easier targets. The remaining teenagers were stunned and horrified as they realized that the true monster had been living among them all along. They had nowhere to run, trapped in the forest with a killer in their midst. Once upon a time, in a small town, there was a house on the outskirts that everyone claimed was haunted. No one had lived in it for years, and the townspeople whispered about strange noises and eerie lights that flickered in the windows at night. One day, a young couple decided to move into the house. They brushed off the rumors, thinking that the townspeople were just superstitious. They soon realized, however, that they were wrong. On their first night in the house, they heard a loud banging coming from the basement. They went to investigate but found nothing. As they went back upstairs, they heard footsteps following them. They turned around, but again, nothing was there. The strange occurrences continued, each night getting worse and more terrifying. The couple tried to leave the house, but the doors wouldn't open, and the windows were sealed shut. One night, they woke up to find themselves tied up in the basement. An old man appeared before them, cackling, and told them that he had trapped them in the house forever. He revealed that he had been haunting the house for years, waiting for someone foolish enough to move in so that he could trap them. The couple was terrified, but then they noticed something strange. The old man's reflection in the basement window showed that he was actually a ghost. They quickly realized that they, too, were ghosts and had been dead all along. The old man had just been playing with them, trapping them in the illusion of a haunted house. The couple's screams echoed through the empty house, but no one could hear them. They were trapped in the ghostly realm forever, prisoners of their own disbelief in the supernatural.